I'll help her with the parts she's stuck on. Like this? When she types on the keyboard, the program starts as expected. Exactly. I snap my fingers in excitement. Alright. Let's move on to the next. Suddenly, her hand touches mine. I haven't asked your name yet. Startled by her sudden question, I get flustered. Oh, me? As I try to evade the question, she was. My name is John. I'm 34 years old. I was going through visitor procedures at the reception of a manufacturing company's headquarters. The receptionist seems to be informed and looks at me with a knowing glance. Escaping that gaze, I quickly finish the procedures and head to the CEO's office via the elevator. After talking with President Michaels, I was given permission to look around the floors, so I decided to casually explore each one. Everyone looks my way, but because I'm wearing a mask due to allergies. But I have on a visitor badge, so they only give me a quick glance. Thinking I'm someone's guest. Everyone is working seriously. One department is smoothly communicating, chatting amicably while still working efficiently. Another department seems busy and focused, working intensely on their computers. I mentally note the characteristics of each department. On the third floor, I felt a sense of unease for the first time since coming to this company. This department was the type to work intensely on their computers. The sign read IT department. They must handle the company's system-related tasks here. Among those silently working on their computers, the source of my unease was near the window. I approached and spoke to the person there. What are you doing? The woman I spoke to flinched and turned to face me. She was a petite woman. I'm making flowers out of paper. As she said that, she glanced behind her. I also looked in the direction she indicated. There was a sign with the company's name on it. We have an event soon to promote our products to clients. The sign is plain, so I thought I'd decorate it to make it more eye-catching. I understood what she was doing. But my unease remained. Are you doing this alone? It would be faster with a few people. To avoid disrupting the tense atmosphere, I asked her quietly. She looked troubled. I don't have any work I can do right now, she said, dejectedly. I frowned. Glancing at her name badge, I saw it read IT Department, Sarah Johnson. While the rest of the IT team seemed busy on their computers, why did she have no work? Seeing my silence, she explained further. I transferred here from a regional branch, but the programming language used here is different, and with the event coming up, there's no time to teach me. It was clear that we should avoid idle chatter during work hours. She seemed to understand that too, keeping her explanation brief, but I got the gist of it. What language do you use here? Her answer reassured me. In that case, I can help. How about I teach you after work? At my suggestion, she vigorously shook her head. No way. I can't impose on someone from another company like that. She seemed to have misunderstood because I was wearing a visitor badge. Oh, no, I'm actually from this company. I just returned from a branch office and I'm on a week's leave. I came to the office today for some paperwork. There's no problem with me teaching a colleague, right? I said this with a smile, though I wasn't sure it was visible through my mask. She looked down and shook her head. No, it would be a burden, and during your break. I hesitated, thinking it might seem too pushy, but I couldn't leave someone in need. I'm enjoying my time off during the day, so I'm free at night. But if you don't need help, that's fine. Though it looks like you really want to work. She looked up at me, startled. Then, with trembling lips, she managed to say, as long as it's not too much trouble. I would appreciate it. Her hesitant reply showed she was still unsure. I smiled gently and nodded. All right, after work, do you know the community center nearby? There's a study room there. Her eyes widened at my suggestion. Since she didn't say anything, I continued. Do you know the place? I'll be there reading for the rest of the day, so if you want to learn, come by after work. With that, I left the floor. It hasn't changed much, or maybe it's gotten a bit older? I stood in front of the community center, lost in thought. I had spent a lot of time here since I was a student. It had a large library and study rooms divided into private cubicles, with rooms for group study next door. Though you weren't supposed to be loud, small conversations for teaching were fine, making it a user-friendly place with quite a few regulars. During this time of year, just after the start of the new school term, the study rooms weren't crowded. Before exams, it would get so busy that finding a seat was a challenge. Exam season. I felt a pang of nostalgia. Back in college, I once tutored a middle school girl. It was only a few sessions, but I remember how fun it felt, like being a teacher. While she worked on problems, I mostly saw the top of her head since she was hunched over her notebook. I remember how amusing it was to see her tearful face when she couldn't solve something, and her bright smile when she succeeded. She kind of reminds me of that girl today. The woman's name was Sarah. The expression on her face as she made those decorative flowers reminded me of that middle school girl. Her petite stature was also similar. Feeling nostalgic, I forgot about reading and sat idly, reminiscing in a corner of the community center. I'm not sure how long I was lost in thought. The door opened, and a familiar figure in a uniform hurried in. "Sarah?" When I called out, she looked around and smiled when she found me. Her quickly changing expressions were charming. We moved to the study room for group learning, and she bowed slightly. "Nice to meet you again. I'm Sarah. Thank you for helping me." I nodded with a smile as she opened her laptop and pulled out a stack of reference books from her bag. I had picked out some books in the library, but they didn't seem necessary. "You're really working hard on your own." She looked troubled at this. "Self-study has its limits. I thought it would be like this. There are many programming languages in the world. Broadly speaking, they can be divided into two categories: compiled languages and scripting languages. Compiled languages execute programs faster but are more complex. You could say they're machine-friendly. In contrast, scripting languages are easier for people to understand but aren't as fast. Since she primarily used scripting languages, the compiled language used by our company's IT department was completely unfamiliar to her. I feel so pathetic. I was so excited about this transfer to the headquarters. "But it's like going to France with just a basic A1 level DELF certificate," she said. I almost laughed at the analogy. But I responded, "No, scripting languages are respectable programming languages. It's not like having an DELF certificate. It's more like being fluent in Japanese or Chinese but struggling in France." When I gave this comparison, Sarah laughed. "Still, you're amazing, Sarah. I heard you improved the efficiency of the main system at the factory with a scripting language. And that system got adopted at other factories too." As I said this, she furrowed her brows. "Did I tell you the details of why I was transferred to the headquarters?" Her question made me a bit nervous. "Oh? No, I just guessed that since you transferred from a branch to the headquarters IT department, you must have done something impressive." My awkward response only made her more suspicious. Panicking, I reached for her reference book. "Well, let's get started. Where are you stuck?" She still looked skeptical but shifted her focus to the book. She had reference books ranging from beginner to advanced levels, but she had already mastered the basics on her own. She seemed to be stuck somewhere in the intermediate section, so I began to help her with the troublesome parts. So like this?" When she typed on the keyboard, the program ran as expected. "Exactly." I snapped my fingers in excitement. "All right. Let's move on to the next." Just as I was about to move on to the next section, she touched my hand. I looked at her in surprise, and she was wide-eyed. "I haven't asked your name yet." Startled by her sudden question, I became flustered. "Oh, me? I'm John. Nice to meet you." Before I could continue, she shook her head vigorously. Seeing my confusion, she whispered softly, "John Michaels, right?" I was taken aback as she said this, my eyes widening in response. She looked at me with teary eyes. You once helped me with my studies here." The moment she said that, I vividly recalled the middle school girl I had been thinking about earlier. When I was in college, I was almost about to graduate and was preparing for my next step. It was a path I didn't want to take. I had always wanted to be a teacher. However, due to family circumstances, my future was already decided. Sighing, I was absent-mindedly reading a book with the necessary knowledge for my future job in the study room. Then, I heard the sound of someone sniffling next to me. Being allergic myself, I thought it might be allergies, but it seemed different.